or not. And that's what's beautiful about this, is that this republic is rising. Humanity is waking up. And can you imagine all the dirty tricks they're going to try to keep Donald Trump out? But even if they're able to steal the election, it doesn't matter, because the public is waking up to their tricks. And at the state and local level, people are understanding that globalism is about making us poor. Globalism is about controlling us. Globalism is about us not being able to have our own destiny. And all over the United States, but also in other areas of the world, people are saying, why can't I have guns to protect myself? Why does government have guns, but I can't have guns? And as we openly exercise this right, their power is faster and faster and faster slipping away. All right, folks, I'm going to come back up here later and introduce the great American Roger Stone, who obviously has been fighting so hard for liberty in this country for so long. And then we're going to have so much more going on today, and I'll be hanging out with you folks as well. But great job defying the intimidators. Great job defying the people that wanted to intimidate folks. Great job coming out here despite all the threats and exercising your sacred First Amendment. We salute you. InfoWars salutes you. And you are part of history. You are the future. God bless you.
Love you. Thank you. USA! USA! USA!
Okay, and that's been the live feed of Alex Jones speaking at the America First Unity Rally there in Cleveland, Ohio, part of the RNC, I guess we'll call them festivities, part of the party. Now, as we look at what's going on behind the scenes, we've had the Never Trump people shut down, the Free the Delegates people shut down. That happened last week. They had the Rules Committee that was meeting. They didn't get anywhere on that, but we still have the diehards, the Never Trumps who never learn, people like Bill Kristol saying that, well, I don't think this is over yet. Well, I don't know what he thinks he's going to do at this point. But anyway, we're going to be having, we're going to go back to our reporters live in Cleveland in just a few minutes. I want to take a look at some of the policies that are coming out of this, some of what some of the Republicans are saying. We've got Senator Sessions, who I had hoped would be the vice presidential nominee for Donald Trump rather than Governor Pence. Senator Sessions says that he thinks that Trump should not get into the weeds with details. In other words, not go into so much detail. Keep it at a low level, a fourth grade level, to explain to the dumbed down population what's going on. I mean, you do need to give people some details. And but I think Senator Sessions knows that most of the people don't really want to know the details. He tried to give the details to all of those in the Senate about the Trans-Pacific Transatlantic Partnership. He tried to explain to them that what they were doing in subverting the constitutional process to ratify a trade treaty with the Trade Promotion Authority was wrong. He set up a presentation to the people in the Senate because most of them didn't care about going in and getting into the weeds, looking at the details of these trade agreements, continuing to say, oh, I think free trade creates jobs, and this is about free trade, so I'm for it. Well, free trade, as they've presented it to us in the trade treaties, has not created jobs, and this is about far more than trade issues. These trade partnerships that are coming through are sovereignty destroying. They take away freedoms on the internet. They take away our sovereignty and put our entire economy under the control of a few people who are unaccountable to those of us in the United States. You know, when you look at what happened with Brexit and the European Union, you had a situation in Brussels where you've got people who've never been, in many cases, to Britain, didn't have any interest in going there, writing the laws for them, telling fishermen whose families have fished the seas there around Britain for generations, telling them they were not going to be allowed to fish there anymore, not even giving them a place at the table to determine what the fishing limits were going to be. That's what the Trans-Pacific Transatlantic Partnerships will do to America. And the only candidate, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, the only candidate out of all of those parties that opposes these trade agreements is Donald Trump. And I'm concerned when I see him picking a vice president who has traditionally not opposed those processes. And that's what we have with with Governor Pence. And as the New American asked, is he a globalist neocon or is he a solid conservative? I think he leans towards being a globalist neocon. We'll see what happens, but it clearly was an olive branch to the Republican establishment to put Pence in there. And we detailed, as it was being talked about in the middle of the week, we're getting heavy hints that he was going to be the selection. InfoWars put up a couple of articles. There was one by Paul Joseph Watson, another by Kurt Nimmo, very specifically going through the record of Pence and the concerns that we had with it. The fact that he has supported the United Nations, the Export-Import Bank, all these other organizations that have undermined our sovereignty here in America. He supported the Patriot Act. He supported the NDAA, indefinite detention by the military without due process act, okay? He has supported the war in Iraq, the unconstitutional war in Iraq. He also supported giving Obama the authorization to go to war with Libya, even though he relied on a United Nations resolution instead of a declaration of war from the Congress. So there's a lot of concerns that we have, even on the border issue, what's going to happen with Pence, his position on that. Clearly, this is a Reagan type of decision that Ronald Reagan made by putting George H.W. Bush in, a man who had opposed him on all the critical issues, who had opposed him on tax cuts, calling Reagan's tax cuts, which, quite frankly, I think Ronald Reagan was one of the best presidential candidates I've ever seen in my life. But when he became president, he really didn't do much of anything. You know, he said he was going to kill the Department of Education, which was still this nurturing demon in the cradle when he took office. It was less than 4 years old. But instead, he fed it. He brought it to life. One thing that he did do, though, was he did reduce the taxes. He brought the levels of the rates down, and he reduced the number of brackets drastically. George H.W. Bush opposed that. He called it voodoo economics. And when he took over after Ronald Reagan, that was one of the first things that he did. You know, everybody knew that he was going to undo what Reagan did with the economy. He said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." He immediately gave us the largest tax increase we had ever seen. When he was called on it, he sarcastically said to the reporters as he was jogging and running off, "Read my hips." That's the kind of arrogance that we get from the GOP establishment. That's what we see from Jeb Bush and others who, fortunately, will not be there at the convention. Nobody's going to miss them, I don't think. I think we're all pretty much tired of the elitist, globalist establishment. And so the concerns that many of us have are that Pence is a peace offering to the GOP establishment, but in the long run, it's going to be a dangerous thing both for Donald Trump and for the American Republic here. Now, Roger Stone said this weekend in an article they put up on Breitbart that he believes that Trump is going to name his prospective cabinet at the RNC. Hopefully he will, and hopefully it will help to take some of the sting out of this bad choice for vice president. This is what Roger Stone said. He said, "I think Trump is going to name a prospective cabinet. And there is, of course, a way to do this in a way that is perfectly legal, because technically, of course, to promise someone a federal job is a crime. So Trump could theoretically say, for CIA director, I would appoint General Mike Flynn or someone like him. For Secretary of State, I would appoint, who knows, somebody else, okay? Now, they questioned him on this when he was talking to Breitbart. They said, "Are you saying that you heard from within the campaign that this is in the works, that this is planned, that this is what's happening at the convention?" And Roger Stone said, "I think you could take that to the bank." So I think that's going to be one of the big takeaways this week at the RNC, is to get an idea of who Donald Trump would appoint to his cabinet. And hopefully that will be something that will be more than just a peace offering to the GOP establishment. Hopefully we'll see something that puts some foundation under what Donald Trump has said he would do. They're, I think, in one way, they are making a clever pivot on the immigration issue. Sometimes when Donald Trump dumbs this down to a fourth grade level so that everybody can understand him, it creates some issues in the way that it's worded. Reince Priebus has gone out talking about the ban, the temporary ban on immigration that Donald Trump talked about. He said, "I think we need to do a temporary ban on Muslim immigration." And everybody hit the ceiling. First of all, they took out the word temporary. They said, "You're just going to blanket ban all Muslims from coming into the country." And what Reince Priebus has said, that would be a temporary ban on immigration from countries that harbor or train terrorists until we get a better vetting system. In other words, he changes it from being focused on a particular religious group to being focused on a geographical area. But of course, the real issue is that people in other countries do not have an innate right to come to America or to any other country. As Alex Jones has pointed out many times, we as Americans don't have an innate right to become citizens of Mexico or any other country. Virtually every country except ours, except for Western Europe, the two areas that they're trying to deliberately alter the demographics, deliberately set up a civil war in. That's what's going on. And the people in France are waking up to this. But outside of the United States and Europe, every other place that you go, you have to be able to prove that you can provide for yourself and your family, the people that you bring with you. You have to prove that you have assets that you're bringing in, that you have wealth, that you have income capability. And in most areas, you have to have their agreement that you share their values. Like in Switzerland, for example. There was a case recently of an American who had taught at university in Switzerland for about 40 years. He was retiring. He wanted to become a Swiss citizen. And they said, no, you know what? We don't really think you share Swiss values. You have to get the permission or actually a character recommendation from people who know you in the area and say that you agree with the Swiss form of government because they don't want it changed. They have a system that they like and they don't want it changed. So in every other country, it's not a given right that you have to become a citizen of that area. But of course, what we have here in the United States with these countries that they're talking about banning immigration from, we have a situation where we have gone there. We have fomented civil war, unrest. We have inflamed both sides in these conflicts. And then we go in there and we say, well, you know what? We don't think that we're going to do foreign aid anymore. We're not even going to try to help you in that country. We're going to say the only thing we can do to help the poor people who are victims of our policy of arming both sides, the only thing we can do that is humanitarian is not to stop the war, not to give them a safe area in that place, but to bring them into the United States. And by default, they get to come in here, and the onus is on us. And if we say that we're not going to bring them in, then we're racist, we're xenophobic. Look, people, regardless of what country they come from, regardless of their race or their religion or anything else, they need to be able to prove themselves to be the kinds of people that are not going to be a problem in this country. When we look at what happened in Nice, you've got a guy there, they didn't have any record of him in Tunisia being radicalized, said the Tunisian government, yet the French police knew multiple times that he had been caught committing crimes. They didn't deport him. They allowed him to stay. And you see the fruit of what happens with that. In these countries where people are coming in, we don't have any way of running a background check on them. They shouldn't be able to come in. It's just that simple. Unless we can verify who you are, unless you have financial assets that you can support yourself and your family, there is no presumption that people should be allowed to come into the United States. So it is interesting that they take this new turn, and they have explained it better to say this is not going to be a religious test. We're looking at particular countries that are harboring or training terrorists. But we have to get past this mindset that is being foisted upon us by the people who want to divide and reorganize the demographics and the system of law and the culture and everything else we have in this country. We have to get around the idea that the default is that people get to come here, and we ought to have a good reason not to allow them to come in here. That is turning that whole process upside down on its head. Now, we can see at the same time that Reince Priebus is trying to turn this into a more understandable position for the mainstream media, one that does not rely on religion. We see that Paul Ryan, who is facing a challenge the beginning of August, a very severe challenge, he's dropped below 50% in terms of people who support him in the primary that's coming up. He is now flooding his district with mailers talking about how he believes in border security. He believes in border security. What a joke. As Breitbart points out, he has funded every open borders initiative. They say every Obama open borders initiative. Look, Paul Ryan has been open borders way before Obama. And we need to not make this a partisan thing. We need to understand, and Paul Ryan is Exhibit A, that both the Republican elite as well as Obama, it's not going to go away if Obama goes away. The Republican elite have supported open borders. Now he's saying he doesn't because he's in trouble. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show.